Tyler Perry is terrible, and look what he traumatized this young man.
You won't believe what Samuel L. Jackson had to say about working with Tyler Perry and why he's always said no. This isn't just about a role or a paycheck. It goes deeper, touching on Hollywood, power, and principles that even a legend like Jackson won't compromise.
I'm able to work and express myself or make choices apparently people like.
Some of what he reveals will shock you. Join us as we uncover the real reasons Samuel L. Jackson refused to step onto Tyler Perry's set. Tyler Perry's billion-dollar formula.
One of the biggest entertainers in the world is Tyler Perry. And Tyler Perry told a lie on me. And that lie cost me 12 years of my career.
Tyler Perry didn't enter Hollywood through the usual doors. He built his career from the ground up, starting with stage plays that he wrote, produced, and promoted himself. At a time when few major studios were backing his work, he focused directly on his audience. His plays gained popularity in theaters across the United States, especially within Black communities.
I gotta go see. That's my baby. I gotta go get my baby. I gotta go get my baby.
From there, he expanded into films and television shows and eventually launched his own production hub, Tyler Perry Studios. Today, he stands as one of the most financially successful filmmakers in the industry.
Present the 2019 BET Ultimate Icon Award to Mr. Tyler Perry.
A big part of that success comes from a very specific storytelling formula that Perry has used consistently over the years. First, there are recurring character types. His stories often feature familiar roles: the strong but struggling woman, the troubled man who needs to change, the comic relief figure, and the wise elder who offers guidance. These characters appear again and again in different forms, making his content feel recognizable and easy to follow for audiences. Second, his stories usually center on moral redemption. Many of his plots focus on people going through hardship, making mistakes, and eventually finding a path to forgiveness or personal growth. These arcs are clear and direct. Characters often face consequences, learn lessons, and move toward a better version of themselves by the end. Another key element is the heavy use of trauma, especially in the lives of Black women.
Embers, that's how women get messed up. Too busy out shopping when you need to be checking the deed.
His films frequently highlight serious issues like poverty, abuse, betrayal, and emotional pain.
Deb, what's going on?
Don't do that. Don't judge me.
These themes are presented in a very direct way, often forming the emotional core of the story. For many viewers, this reflects real struggles. For others, it can feel repetitive or limiting. The first pushback?
This on today is coonery buffoonery, breaking records, but we could do better.
The first strong and public criticism of Tyler Perry from within the film industry came from director Spike Lee. Unlike casual online comments or social media debates, this was a direct statement from someone who had long been respected for his work on Black stories and representation in cinema. Spike Lee used the phrase coonery buffoonery to describe some of Perry's content. That phrase carries serious weight, especially within the Black community. It is not just a casual insult. It points to a long and painful history in entertainment where Black characters were portrayed in exaggerated, foolish, or degrading ways for the sake of humor or profit. These types of portrayals were common in older films and shows.
Duvet covers, they don't even match. I mean, what do you call that? A home?
And many people have worked hard to move away from them. So when Spike Lee used those words, he was not simply saying he didn't like the movies. He was making a much deeper accusation. He was suggesting that some of Perry's work brings back those outdated and harmful portrayals. In his view, it was not just about entertainment. It was about how Black people are represented on screen and how those images affect how others see the community. This kind of criticism is important because it comes from someone who has also built a career telling Black stories, but in a very different way. Spike Lee's films often focus on complex characters, social issues, and real-life struggles, without relying heavily on exaggerated humor or repeated character types. That difference in approach made his criticism stand out even more. However, what makes this situation interesting is that the criticism did not slow Tyler Perry down at all. His films continued to perform well. His audience remained loyal. his business kept growing. In fact, his success seemed almost untouched by the backlash.
I am giving them absolutely a lot of times more than they've ever made because I think it's important. If I'm in this seat, I set the standard, but send a message out to everybody else.
This creates a clear contrast between two forces. On one side, you have artistic standards and concerns about representation. On the other side, you have audience demand. Millions of people continue to watch Perry's films and shows, which means there is a strong connection between his content and his viewers. This leads to a bigger and more important conflict. It raises the question of profit versus responsibility. Should a creator focus on what sells and what audiences enjoy, or should they also carry the responsibility of shaping better and more balanced representations? There is no simple answer, but this moment marked the beginning of a larger conversation. It showed that Tyler Perry's work was not just popular, it was also deeply debated. The community divide. As Tyler Perry continued to grow his empire, the conversation around his work didn't just stay within Hollywood. It moved into everyday spaces, homes, social media, community discussions, and online forums. Regular viewers, especially Black women, began sharing their thoughts more openly. And many of those voices raised similar concerns. One of the most common arguments is about the repeated focus on Black female suffering. In many of Perry's films and shows, Black women are shown dealing with intense hardship. These stories often include themes like abuse, betrayal, poverty, and emotional pain.
Charles, what am I supposed to do without you?
Look, you're a bright girl. You'll figure it out.
While these are real issues, critics from the community feel they are shown too often and in very similar ways. Over time, this repetition starts to stand out.
Monique, why is she canceled? And then I know Tyler wouldn't support that. When I talked to him, he was like, nah, I never told no one not to work with her.
Another concern is the limited range of portrayal. Many viewers feel that Black women in these stories are mostly defined by struggle. They are shown as victims, survivors, or people constantly facing challenges. While strength and resilience are important, some argue that these are not the only experiences Black women have. By focusing heavily on pain, the stories can feel one-sided. This is where the contrast becomes clear. Many people ask why there are not more stories showing joy, success, and normal everyday life. Where are the characters who are simply living, working, growing, and enjoying life without extreme hardship? Where are the stories that show healthy relationships, career achievements, or personal happiness without trauma being the main focus? For some viewers, this gap is frustrating. They feel that constantly seeing negative or painful experiences on screen can affect how Black women are viewed, both by others and by themselves. Representation matters, and when certain images are repeated often, they can shape perceptions over time. At the same time, there are also people who defend Perry's work. They argue that he is showing real struggles that exist in many communities. They believe these stories give a voice to experiences that are often ignored or not talked about openly. From this perspective, his films are not meant to limit representation, but to highlight important issues. This creates a divide within the community. On one side, there are those who see his work as honest and necessary. On the other side, there are those who feel it is repetitive and limiting. This leads to a deeper question that continues to come up. Is Tyler Perry simply reflecting reality as it is, or is he shaping how that reality is seen? The answer is not clear, but the discussion shows just how powerful storytelling can be. The dress debate.
Him and Tyler Perry can't play a man to save their life. They play good women, and I believe that the best actor should be in the best role.
As the conversation around Tyler Perry grew, another topic kept coming up again and again. This one focused on comedy, and more specifically, the long history of Black male comedians wearing dresses on screen. Some people see it as harmless humor. Others see something deeper behind it. Comedians like Cat Williams and Dave Chappelle have both spoken about this issue, each in their own way. They raised questions about why this pattern exists and why it seems so common in entertainment. The core concern is simple. Many Black male comedians, at some point in their careers, are asked or encouraged to play characters in dresses. For some, it's just part of comedy. It gets laughs, and audiences recognize it.
What is that?
Oh, this. The timeouts weren't working for the kids, so we had to come up with a new system.
But for others, it raises questions about control and expectations in the industry. Dave Chappelle has been very open about his personal experience. He shared that during his career, he was asked to wear a dress for a role. He refused. Even when there was pressure and a lot of money involved, he stood by his decision. For him, it was not about whether it was funny or not. It was about staying within his own boundaries and being comfortable with what he was doing on screen. This moment became important because it showed that saying no can come with a cost. Walking away from a major opportunity is not easy, especially in an industry where success is not guaranteed. But Chappelle made it clear that personal principles mattered more to him than financial gain. Now, when people bring up Tyler Perry in this discussion, it usually connects back to his most famous character, Medea. Medea is played by Perry himself and is a central part of his success. The character is loud, bold, and comedic, and audiences have supported it for years. There is no doubt that Medea helped build his brand and expand his reach. However, critics argue that this also feeds into the larger pattern they are concerned about. They question whether this type of comedy is simply entertainment or if it carries a message that goes beyond humor. Some believe it can be seen as symbolic emasculation, while others strongly disagree and see it as creative expression. This is where the debate becomes more complex. On one side, there is the idea of harmless comedy that people enjoy. On the other, there is concern about deeper meaning and long-term impact. At the center of it all is a bigger issue: industry expectations versus personal boundaries. Some performers go along with what is asked of them. When to succeed, others choose to draw a line. And that choice can define not just their careers, but also how they are seen by the public. Samuel L. Jackson.
When you hire me, you're getting a black actor. You didn't see a black actor when you wrote it, or even if you saw one, sometimes what you put in my mouth is not how I talk.
When you look at Samuel L. Jackson and his long career, a clear pattern stands out. He is known for taking on strong roles, playing complex characters, and working in projects that demand a high level of creative effort. Whether he is leading a film or supporting the story, his performances usually bring depth and intensity. That has become a big part of his identity as an actor. Jackson has worked across many genres, but there is a consistent focus on storytelling quality. The characters he plays are often layered. They have motivations, conflicts, and development that feel detailed and intentional. This is especially clear in the kinds of directors and projects he chooses. He has collaborated with filmmakers who focus on strong scripts and cinematic detail, where each scene is carefully built. Because of this, his creative standards are considered very high. He does not just take roles for visibility or quick success. His choices suggest that he values structure, character development, and a certain level of depth in storytelling. Over time, this has shaped his brand. Audiences expect a certain kind of performance from him, and he has maintained that consistency. Now, when you compare this approach to the style of Tyler Perry, the difference becomes clear. Perry's production model is built on speed and efficiency. His films and shows are often created quickly, with tight schedules and a focus on delivering content regularly. The stories tend to rely on familiar character types and straightforward plots. This makes them easy to follow and widely accessible, but it also means they are usually less focused on deep character exploration. This difference is important. Jackson's work leans toward layered, cinematic storytelling. Perry's work leans toward fast production and simplified storytelling structures. Both approaches can be successful, but they serve different creative goals. Because of this, the idea that Samuel L. Jackson has not worked with Tyler Perry may not be about personal issues or direct conflict. Instead, it points to something more fundamental. It suggests a creative incompatibility. Their methods, priorities, and storytelling styles do not naturally align. This is why it is better to see his absence not as a rejection, but as a misalignment of artistic philosophy. Jackson appears to choose projects that match his approach to acting and storytelling. Perry has built a system that operates differently. In the end, both have found success in their own ways, but their paths show that even in the same industry, there can be very different ideas about what makes a story worth telling and how it should be told. Denzel Washington.
There's a saying, when the devil ignores you, then you know you're doing something wrong.
When discussing decisions in Hollywood, most people focus on money, fame, or creative differences. But with Denzel Washington, there is another layer that often shapes his choices.
Denzel Washington is one of Hollywood's highest-grossing actors. Washington directed and stars in his latest film, Fences.
His worldview is strongly influenced by his faith. He has spoken openly over the years about his beliefs, his values, and how they guide both his life and career. Denzel Washington is not just known as an award-winning actor. He is also known for speaking about morality in a very direct way. In interviews and public appearances, he has talked about concepts like right and wrong, purpose, and what he describes as spiritual warfare. For him, success is not only about achievements or recognition, it is also about staying aligned with what he believes is right. One idea he has shared is that opposition can sometimes be a sign that a person is on the right path. He has suggested that when everything feels easy and comfortable, it is worth questioning why. On the other hand, when someone faces resistance, it may mean they are standing for something important. This perspective shapes how he looks at both opportunities and challenges. When you understand this mindset, it changes how you interpret his professional decisions. If he chooses not to work on a certain project, it may not be about the script quality or the financial offer. It could be about whether the message of that project aligns with his personal beliefs. He seems to look beyond the surface level of a role and ask deeper questions about what it represents. This is where the discussion around Tyler Perry becomes more interesting. If Denzel Washington has chosen not to collaborate with Perry, it may not be a standard industry decision. It could reflect a moral position rather than a professional disagreement. That distinction matters because it suggests a different level of evaluation. For Denzel, a project is not just about acting, it is also about impact. He appears to consider how a story influences people, what values it promotes, and what message it sends to audiences. This kind of thinking goes beyond performance and enters the space of responsibility. It also explains why he has maintained a certain reputation throughout his career. He is selective, but not in a way that feels random. There is a clear pattern of choosing roles that carry meaning, whether through strong storytelling or important themes. So when people question why he may have avoided working with certain filmmakers, it is important to consider this deeper layer. His decisions are likely not just about career strategy. They are about alignment between his work and his beliefs. The disrespectful role. One of the more talked about ideas surrounding Denzel Washington and his lack of collaboration with Tyler Perry is what many refer to as the disrespectful role theory. This theory suggests that Denzel may have been offered a role at some point but chose to turn it down because he found it offensive or misaligned with his values. It is important to be clear that this idea is based on claims and speculation rather than confirmed public statements directly connecting the two. However, the reason this theory continues to gain attention is because it fits with what people already know about Denzel's decision-making process. To understand why this matters, you have to look at how rare it is for actors at his level to reject major opportunities. In Hollywood, A-list actors often work with top producers and directors, especially those who have a strong track record of financial success. Tyler Perry is one of those figures. His projects consistently attract audiences and generate revenue. For many actors, being part of that kind of success would be seen as a smart career move. So when someone like Denzel Washington, who has worked with some of the biggest names in the industry, appears to avoid that collaboration entirely, it raises questions. It suggests that the reason is not something simple like scheduling or pay. Instead, it points toward a deeper concern. If the disrespectful role theory is even partly true, it implies that the issue goes beyond creative differences. Actors often adjust to different styles, scripts, and directors. That is part of the profession, but there are limits. For actors with strong personal values and long-established reputations, certain roles may feel unacceptable, regardless of the potential success attached to them. For Denzel, this could mean rejecting characters that he believes send the wrong message or fail to represent people in a meaningful way. Given his focus on purpose and integrity, it is not hard to imagine that he would step away from a role that did not meet his standards. This idea also adds tension to the broader discussion. It raises an important question. What actually crosses the line for actors at his level? At what point does a role stop being just a job and start becoming something they cannot support? For someone like Denzel Washington, the answer seems to involve more than just performance. It includes respect, message, and meaning. And if those elements are not present, even the biggest opportunities may not be enough to change his decision. Christian Keys. Long before lawsuits and headlines began to appear, there were already voices trying to raise concerns. One of the most notable among them is Christian Keys. His name often comes up when discussing early warnings about alleged behavior within the industry, particularly connected to powerful figures. Christian Keys publicly shared that he experienced harassment and coercion from someone in a position of power. While he did not immediately name the person, he described situations where he felt pressured in ways that crossed professional boundaries. According to his statements, these were not isolated incidents. They were repeated interactions that made him uncomfortable and put him in a difficult position as someone trying to build and protect his career. What makes his claim stand out is that he said he collected recorded evidence. He explained that once he realized what was happening, he began documenting conversations to protect himself. This is important because it shifts the situation from being just personal claims to something more serious. When someone says they have recordings, it suggests that there may be proof beyond just words. Another key point is timing. Christian Keyes did not wait for a major lawsuit or public scandal to speak up. He attempted to share his experience earlier. He talked about it publicly and tried to bring attention to what he believed was wrong. However, his voice did not receive the level of attention that similar stories get today. This brings attention to a larger pattern that has been seen not just in entertainment, but in many industries. People speak out early, but their claims are often ignored, doubted, or pushed aside. It is only when legal action is taken, or when multiple people come forward with similar stories, that the situation begins to gain wider attention. In Keyes' case, his early warnings did not immediately lead to major consequences or widespread discussion. But as more allegations and lawsuits began to surface later, his story started to be viewed differently. People began to connect the dots and reconsider what he had been saying all along. This pattern raises important questions about how early warnings are handled. Why are some voices ignored at first? What causes people to take them seriously later? And how many similar stories have been overlooked before reaching that point? Christian Keyes' experience is often seen as part of a bigger timeline. It shows that concerns were present long before legal cases made headlines. It also highlights the challenges individuals face when speaking out against powerful figures, especially without immediate support. And once you start looking at the timeline closely, the next set of events becomes even harder to ignore. The lawsuits. For a long time, most of the criticism around Tyler Perry stayed in the form of opinions, interviews, and online discussions. But that began to change when legal action entered the picture. One of the most talked about cases involves Derek Dixon, whose lawsuit brought a new level of attention to the situation.
He reached down and pulled my underwear down and grabbed my, tried to stop him and pull back my underwear up. And
Derek Dixon filed a lawsuit that included serious allegations tied to what is known as quid pro quo. This is a legal term that simply means an exchange. In a workplace context, it usually refers to a situation where someone in power offers benefits, like a job or promotion, in return for personal or inappropriate favors. It also includes the unspoken threat that refusing those favors could lead to negative consequences. According to the claims, Dixon's experience followed a clear progression. It began with opportunity. He was noticed, given attention, and offered a chance to step into the industry in a bigger way. For someone trying to build a career, that kind of moment can feel like a breakthrough. Then came pressure. The allegations suggest that communication became more frequent and gradually shifted in tone. What started as professional interaction reportedly moved into uncomfortable territory. This is where the idea of quid pro quo becomes important. The implication is that the opportunity was no longer separate from personal expectations. Finally, there were consequences.
A representative for Perry says Dixon then demanded a payment of more than $42 million.
According to the lawsuit, when those expectations were not met, it affected Dixon's position. His role and future within the project were impacted. This completes the pattern that is often described in such cases: opportunity, followed by pressure, followed by negative outcomes when compliance does not happen. These claims are strongly denied by Tyler Perry's legal team, who argue that the allegations are false and financially motivated. This is an important part of the story, because in legal matters, both sides present their version of events, and the truth is determined through the legal process. However, what makes this case stand out is not just the details, but how it connects to earlier conversations. For years, there were whispers about power dynamics, pressure, and uncomfortable experiences within certain environments. At the time, those claims were often dismissed or not widely discussed. Now, with a formal lawsuit, those earlier concerns are being revisited in a more serious way. The presence of legal claims changes how people view the situation. It moves the discussion from speculation to something that demands closer attention. Even without a final legal outcome, the existence of the case itself shifts the narrative. This leads to an important discussion about protection versus accountability. Are these legal tools being used to fairly resolve disputes, or do they sometimes protect powerful individuals and organizations from full scrutiny? At the same time, how do you balance the rights of all parties involved while ensuring that serious concerns are properly addressed? These questions do not have simple answers, but as more cases come into the spotlight, they become harder to ignore. And there you have it, the story behind why legends like Samuel L. Jackson and Denzel Washington drew a line with Tyler Perry. From creative clashes to serious allegations, it's a lot to unpack. If you want to see what happens next in this unfolding saga and get all the latest updates, make sure to hit that subscribe button and join us as we break it all down.